To order the meeting for Monday, November 6, 2023 of the Wilson School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the pledge to the flag. This evening we have a number of communication items, and before we start the process, I would like to take a moment just to reiterate something that was shared during one of our previous athletic games in reference to an experienced board member who has recently passed away. It was read, and this was during the game, today we gather not only to celebrate the game before us, but also to honor the memory of a member of our Wilson community. Randy Blat was a dedicated Wilson School Board member for 17 years and served as president for a decade, leaving a mark on the educational landscape of our district. Beyond his commitment to education, Randy was a supporter of Wilson athletics, a familiar face in the stands during our home games, and in retirement he continued to serve the district as a substitute teacher. And then a moment of silence for Mr. Blat was taken. So just a moment to remember his service to our district up until very recently as a current substitute as well, and probably the entire time that I was a student. So just to keep Mr. Blat and his family especially in your thoughts. So I appreciate that. And starting with our communication, celebration piece, we'll call Dr. Weber up from the high school to recognize some very impressive students.
Thank you, and good evening. I have the distinct pleasure of recognizing 4 students that met national recognition for the PSATs. This past year, I was able to pull the accurate data now. We had about actually 1.5 million high school students in their junior year take the PSATs this past year. So with that, of the top of that group, they take the top percentage, about 3%, and they acknowledge them as commended students. So these 3 students I'm going to bring up scored in the top 3% in the entire country of 1.5 million students, which is absolutely astounding when you think about it. So with that, I'm going to invite Jason Kaufman, Toby Booker, and Angela Rapp to please join me up here. Additionally, we had one student that reached semifinalist status, and he did submit his stuff for the finalist recognition, so he'll find out in the spring whether he met that criteria. But this puts him in the top 1%, or about the top 15 to 16,000 in the entire country, and that is Kofi Anacha. Come on up. I just think it's absolutely amazing that to have students that perform that well in this assessment. I mean, it's just, again, 1.5 million students. So with that, just again, another round of applause for these outstanding students. Not to put anybody on the spot, but does anyone have any questions for them? And we're moving on. All right, great job. Guys, go ahead around.
Thank you, Dr. Weber, for the piece of good news communication. I pass the next communication piece on to Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, President Cocker. The next communication section up here is again an opportunity to recognize some exceptional Bulldogs here that came tonight. These Bulldogs, for many reasons other than what's listed on the screen, which is just years of service, contribute immeasurably to the value of our school district. We started this last year, where we started to look at, within some of the protocols we have in place, there are intervals throughout time where in the past, we would issue pins. And while it's just a very small symbol of our appreciation for all the work that you do, it really symbolizes a lot more than that. So tonight, we have folks that represent some of those years where people do receive pins. It starts at 10 years, goes 15, 20, 25, 30, and so on in those 5-year intervals. But I'm very happy to report that tonight we have folks that are also in the alternating years who have selected and chosen to be here tonight to be recognized for their contribution. And the folks on this list represent all different facets of our school district. We talk about our team often in this room and with all of you, and I think that this list really just exemplifies or takes a really good snapshot of all the different folks that we have that serve kids every day. In addition to the folks that are here, I'm going to just announce a couple of more people that Mrs. Burkholder gave me that are not on that list. Tammy Campbell has been a driver for us in our transportation department for 27 years. Rebecca Kunis, child care, 27 years. And Bernadette Steve, child care for 26 years within our school district. So I would ask all of you that are on this list to please stand to be recognized by everyone that's here today and also to be recognized by our public. And also, if we could give them the same receiving line that we just gave our students, we'd appreciate that as well. So thank you. Go ahead and stand up and come on up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brooke, thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thanks. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully you made it home in between.
Yes, I did.
I
I did. I made it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Brad. Thank you for all you do. Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you. Hey, how are you?
Very nice. I like the red.
Good.
Hi. Thank you so much. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
to see
you.
you too. You're welcome. Thank you.
Hello there, friend. I can't believe it's been that long. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Hello. Thank you for coming as well. Mike? Thank you. I just saw you on the website for Italian restaurant down by my house. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Which one was that?
you.
Warnersville, Calabrias. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm not sure, I don't know her. Could be, 15. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Dr. Brian came to support her team. Oh, yeah, she's great. Mr. Fiddling?
Another thank you to the dedication from every employee that we honor tonight. That's what makes Wilson so special, that people stay, and we appreciate you for your years of service. And our next communication piece, Dr. Treckett.
Can you pull up the slide deck? Perfect. All right, for the next presentation, very happy and proud to be able to present tonight our bids as received by the school district earlier, in the month of October. To start the conversation tonight, Mr. Sean Dowdy from Crabtree Ruleborough and Associates will take the community and our board through the presentation of bids. We will then transition to Mrs. Schlossman, who will talk about a couple of the financial items related to the bids. And then we will come back to this item down under Section 9, where we will ask the board to engage in conversation around the proposed resolution. So, Mr. Dowdy.
All tonight. So after many months of design, we have the bids that have come in a few weeks ago, so we will get into sharing the results of those bids with you this evening. So we'll go over the project bids that came in, all of the prime contractors as well as the alternates that were involved with the bids. We'll discuss those project alternates with you so that you understand what we're looking at, recommending to you, and what each of those alternates mean. Ms. Schlossman will bring to your updated financial information pertaining to this project and other circumstances that you have prepared. And then we'll talk about next steps, what happens next should you elect to proceed with the project tonight. So, across the board, we had a successful bid day. We had competition for all of the prime contractors, most notably for mechanical contracting. So we'll touch on that in a minute. To start with the general construction contract, we had two bids received, one from Stubner General Contractors and the other from ECI Construction. Stubner came in as the low general construction contractor for a base bid in the amount of $14.6 million with an alternate one that's for unclassified construction in the amount of $620,000. Alternate two, which is for acoustical band shells for the auditorium, and the amount of $120,000. And alternate three, which is for additional theatrical lighting in the amount of $92,000. So, to brief you really quickly on each of those alternates, unclassified construction, what that means is, whereas in the base bid, should the contractor be encountering any rock or unsuitable soils in their excavation for the new slabs and footings and foundations, in the base bid, the school district would have been paying for that excavation and replacement with suitable fill on a unit price schedule. In the alternate bid, that relieves Wilson School District from that risk because it's kind of an unknown. And for the amount, for the GC and the amount of $620,000 in this case, that eliminates all the risk. So any of that excavation down to the design subgrade, which is essentially the bottom of the new footings, any of that excavation the contractor will own, should you elect to accept this alternate bid. It's kind of an insurance policy, you could look at it that way. It basically relieves you of the risk that you might encounter on suitable soils or rock. So that's alternate one. Alternate two is called the Sonata Convex Acoustical Shell. So what that alternate was, we had this as well as the first alternate on the first iteration of the project, you may recall. In the base bid, we are augmenting your existing Ala Brava acoustical band shells. We're adding more to it to suit your needs and the new stage in this new auditorium. The alternate was basically a higher performing version of that. So you can see $120,000. These are basically furniture. You could buy them at any point down the line, should you so choose. But these are higher performing product, and thus the price that you see. Alternate three is additional theatrical lighting. We essentially had the same lighting package that we had the first iteration, so that the quantities were basically the same as the first time around. It was requested to provide an alternate bid if we were to augment that with a little bit more theatrical lighting. This too, like alternate two, could always be added on should you so choose down the line. The infrastructure is there for you. It's ready to go. It's just additional lighting should you decide you would want that and not elect to do it tonight. So you can see ECI was on the base bid behind Stubner by about $154,000. So that's the delta that you can see in the competition between these two. Mechanical construction, 7 bids were received. This is where we had the best coverage for the bids, with JBM Mechanical being the low bid at $2.87 million. Myco Mechanical slightly behind, $16,000 separated them in JBM. Frylots in third with $64,000 behind the low. HM Heisen Mechanical, $114,000. The Worker Group, $383,000 and change. And North Bay Mechanical at $510,000 beyond JBM. Finally, McCloskey Mechanical Contractors at $856,000 and change. There were no alternate bids for the mechanical package. Plumbing construction, we have 5 bids received, with J.R. Reynolds being the low bid at $844,000 and change. There was an unclassified alternate bid for plumbing construction as well. The low bidder, J.R. Reynolds, had no change in cost for that unclassified alternate. Vision Mechanical came in second for the base bid with $30,000 separating them and J.R. Reynolds. JBM Mechanical was $290,000 more than J.R. Reynolds. Leibold was $391,000 more, and Myco Mechanical at $831,000 and change more. And again, there was one alternate for unclassified construction. Electrical construction, 4 bids were received, with Hernheisen Electric being the low bid at $2,159,000. Again, there was one alternate for electrical construction. That was for unclassified construction, similar to plumbing in general. Hernheisen's alternate bid price was $2,200. West Scott Electric Company was second lowest, $30,000 ahead or higher than Hernheisen. Cedar Electric was $290,000 higher, and HB Fraser Company $391,000 higher. So this is the summary of the apparent lows with Stubner, JBM Mechanical, J.R. Reynolds, and Hernheisen Electric being the successful bidders. So you can see the bid totals coming down to $20,559,600 for the base bid, and then adding in the cost of alternate number 1, is an additional $622,200. So the total with the recommended alternate for unclassified construction is $181,800. So this is the recommendation that's being presented to you tonight to accept the base bid with alternate number 1 for unclassified construction. This slide is basically a summarization of the results of the bidding process, kind of tied into a reorganized version of the budget estimates that we've been providing to you on a periodic basis up until this day. So what you see in the gray box, the first 2 columns, is basically that award recommendation that we brought over from the last slide. Column 3 is the construction-related soft costs. So you'll probably recall that we included in the budget estimates some lines for costs that are related to construction. These include your construction contingencies that's used for change orders. You might encounter something unanticipated in the field. It happens. As well as testing and inspection costs, commissioning, and so on and so forth. We also had in that budget estimate a contingency for classified construction, which you can see in this case. We are recommending you take the unclassified construction alternate bid, so that contingency basically turns into a credit that you can put toward that alternate bid cost. What you see here is some numbers we've been able to get and fully realize, such as the testing and inspection costs. We've had a company called QA Plus reaching out to get testing and inspection companies on board for this. So we've had that priced out already, and testing and inspection has come in almost 1/3 of the cost of what we had budgeted in your budget estimates to date. So we're realizing some savings in that front. In addition to that, the commissioning has come in significantly under what we were budgeting for as well. So between that and that contingency for classified construction, we're able to realize some savings on the construction-related soft cost front. Non-construction related soft costs, we brought this over again from our budget estimates that we've been presenting. These costs include, for instance, professional fees, a lot of the geotechnical testing. We had the acoustical consultant on board for this. So all of those sorts of fees that were required during the design phase are what contributed to that $1.7 approximate million figure that you see there. We're also showing a kind of a credit of $145,000 for furniture and equipment. We've had the furniture package estimated out to be somewhat lower than what we had budgeted for as well. So we see a $145,000 plus or minus savings on that front. The furniture, I will say, is not yet ordered. That's something that will help you guys out with as you get into the construction phase with making your furniture selections, but we feel very confident about that number. And then the final column all the way on the right totals all of that up. So what you see in the yellow line across the bottom are the sums of the awards, the bid awards, alternate number 1 for unclassified construction. You see the sums for construction-related soft costs, non-construction soft costs, and then the grand total. So that $23.641 and change million figure that you see there, you can kind of put that against the 22.897 kind of bottom line that we've been sharing with you to date. So the difference between them is $743,702, which is essentially 3.2%. So we're a little bit over where we were estimating to be on this day, but through some savings that we were able to realize through testing, inspection, so on and so forth, we're able to help out in that sense. And then I'll turn this over to Ms. Schlossman.
Thank you. So just to address the funding of the project, to remind everyone, we issued general obligation bonds in 2021 for $45 million. That was related to the original project of the entire high school renovation and the Fields project. Those bids were rejected, but now we have this new project in front of us, so we're going to walk through the bond issue and what has been spent to date and what is remaining. So the High School Performing Arts Center, which Sean just presented, at $23.6 million would come from these bonds. The Lower House HVAC project was formally approved by the board, was $5.3 million. The food service high school equipment relates to the fact that the original project had an entire high school cafeteria and food service area renovated. We delayed purchasing high school equipment for that project. That project did not come to fruition. However, we are buying that high school equipment out of this bond, and you will see that on the board agenda this evening. The prior project expenses that I just spoke of, the high school renovations and fields project, was $2.5 million, and we have projected net interest revenue on these bonds of $2.8 million, which adds back to this fund. Right now, we have the money invested in something that's acronym of SLUGS. It's State and Local Government Securities. That allows us to retain the interest above the bond yield rate. So we're earning interest at a higher rate than we borrowed the money. And because of the investment that we're in, based on the advice of our investment advisors, we can retain that interest now that it's in those types of securities. So that number there of $2.8 million is projected that we can retain that interest that is there for total projected uses and sources of $28.8 million for a net available for Phase 2 construction of $16.2 million. In August, when we talked about Phase 2, we said we'd have about between $14 and $15 million available from this bond issue to fund a portion of Phase 2. So this analysis still has that available money in there as we spoke about in August. Thank you.
Okay. So should you elect to do so tonight, the board will authorize to award the bids for the auditorium project, which means tomorrow we would issue to all of the successful contractors letters of intent to award. So that'll get them to start doing their paperwork, getting their bonds in order. Basically starts the clock for them to pull that all together. So they'll be submitting their bonds and insurance, so on and so forth thereafter. And we would expect all of that to be in place somewhere there about November 20th. And once it is all in place, we will be able to issue the notice to proceed to all the contractors. At that point, they will start doing all of their shop drawings, submittals, getting everything in order so that on January 2nd, they can hit the ground running on site. And then a reminder that substantial completion is August 15th of 2025. That substantial completion is an important date for a couple reasons. One is that is the date that most of your warranties for installed material will start to take place. So the clock from there, the clock starts from there. And the warranty lengths vary by product. The other reason it's important is we will be withholding payment of the final 5% to the contractors from that point on. So that's basically what will allow you to ensure that they are completing their punch list properly. So that's the incentive for them to complete the final work before you pay that final 5%. So that's what the substantial completion date means. And that is the end.
Well, thank you, Sean, for your continued updates to the board. Are there any questions for Sean from the board?
Mr. Dowdy is going to stay for the duration of item 9 on the agenda.
Yep.
Okay, questions till then? Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the communication pieces of our meeting. We do have public participation on agenda items. So, Mr. Maravich?
Amend with the agenda, we're doing it after.
That's up to you.
Usually do it when it's solicitor, but.
Okay, sure, yeah. Just add-
So we have some slight changes to the agenda as it was published, I guess Friday. The 9.1, which we just discussed, there was a typographical error related to, not related to the numbers, but specifically related to describing one of the alternates. That's been corrected. So 9.1, and then with respect to those food service bids, which were 13.2, 13.5, and 13.6, those have been slightly updated, one to 5 cents, one to $3, and one to $1,159.31. $1,159.31 is into the favor to the district as to a lower number. So because those have been amended as of this morning, just in compliance with the Sunshine Law, I'm asking for a motion from the board to approve those slight changes to 9.1, 13.2, 13.5, and 13.6.
So, Mr. Negrini? Thank you. And do we have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion, questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich.
Now, public participation.
Public participation.
Okay, thank you. Rules of public participation at school board meetings. Pursuant to the Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules, and board policy, the following are the rules of public participation. Individuals attending this meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comment on matters that are or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on by board members, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker after the meeting to attempt to answer those questions. The board respectfully asks that you direct your comments to the board as a body, as it's the entire board that will need to consider these comments in future votes. Clapping, calling out, or cheering, and conversations in the audience are not permitted. Individuals should not approach the board tables. Individuals shall make their comments from the lectern. Comments will be 3 minutes, and I'll try to provide a 1-minute uninterruptive signal that there's 1 minute left. Any persons making threats of violence may be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is on board docs embedded within the district's website.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, for public participation on agenda items, we have Daniel Shearer, before and after care RFP.
Yes, I just had one basic issue. Well, first off, thank you. It's a very challenging situation. I'm a parent of second year in the school system, parent of kids within the Green Valley system without any before and after care throughout the duration of the year at this point. But I'd like to, applaud the efforts that have been made by the administration and staff to come to the point of this RFP, which, I fully support, with only one question or recommendation, which would be pursuant to there was one clause within the RFP that states that a third-party contractor, if you will, the proposer would only be able to operate the before and after care on days of school service. And I would, on behalf of me and many members of the community that I've talked with on this topic, notwithstanding some indemnity clause or state regulation, use of facility laws or regulations or something, I would motion to strike that language from the request for proposal, and/or just highly encourage any proposals that come in to the contrary or to suggest to the contrary that that be considered with heavy consideration. And, yeah, otherwise, I would motion to accept that proposal and keep the process going as quick as possible. It's a really tight timeline. For next year, it's a tight timeline, and I think the community wants to keep the before and after care at school facilities. It's simpler, they're not transporting kids back and forth and so on and so forth. And yeah, with that, only thing I could add is just general commentary not related to any actionable item or whatever. It would just be the level of communication through this process, I think, could be improved drastically. Like, I had some notes written down, but it is 8/18, we received first indication of notice that this facility was, maybe not opening on time, and then later not opening ever or whatever. And then, I attended the 11-1 meeting just a week ago, and discussing the request for proposal, but that's not issued ahead of time, so how can you discuss them? You don't have access to, I think we need to work on those things collectively. That's just a commentary, and then I'll get out of your way. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Sanjita Shah, childcare RFP proposal.
Good evening. My name is Sangeeta Shah. I'm a graduate of the Wilson School District and have two daughters who attend Wilson. I currently work in childcare at Shiloh Hills. Prior to that, I was working at childcare at Green Valley, which is currently closed due to lack of staffing. I have been with the district for 6.5 years. Jen Brown, who is the lead teacher at Shiloh Hills, has been with Wilson since 2009. This talk is from the both of us, and actually all of childcare, which many people are present tonight. We are deeply concerned about the proposal for the RFP. We clearly understand the reasoning for putting out the proposal and the enormous effort in trying to find staff to fill childcare positions. However, we all feel that we need to exhaust all avenues before the RFP. For example, we could look into hiring aides, as we did in the past. Second, we need to be more flexible with people's availability if someone can work mornings versus afternoons. Third, there are people in the district that would like to take on more hours, but are only allowed 29.5 hours weekly. These challenges can be overcome if we work together as a Bulldog family. Right before school started, all the staff were given a white and red shirt where our motto is, Wilson is the place to work, learn, and live. In childcare, we want to remain as Wilson employees. That should not change for us. If someone partnered with us, our valid concerns are the following. Number one, losing our PSERs. Number two, our pay rates may change. Number three, we are no longer Wilson employees. How would we be treated in each of the elementary schools? Number four, we would no longer be included in district events. We would no longer be part of the Bulldog family. How sad would that be for all of us? Number five, What kind of restrictions and new rules would the new childcare put on us in all of the buildings? Number 6, would the new childcare be flexible with the space that we currently use? Jen and I love working in childcare. When parents come to pick up their kids, the children come to them saying, "Why did you come so early?" That's their response. We hope that the Wilson School Board will thoroughly explore every avenue possible before approving the RFP proposal. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Chastity Santiago, resignations, end of service.
All right. Try to get through this. I wanted to talk to you all tonight about a tragic incident that President Cocker had mentioned earlier. It happened in our community recently. At the conclusion of the last board meeting, several members of this community were ambushed for simply supporting the wrong candidates in this community in this election that's coming up. Randy Blat was one of those individuals targeted. Later that evening, Randy Blat had a stroke and passed away. I want to make it very clear that I am in no way saying the events that transpired caused his stroke. But what I am saying is they could have been avoided. And it's very sad and unfortunate to know that his wife now has to go on asking that question every day. If that didn't happen, would he have had that stroke? This is horrifying and heartbreaking. It's unacceptable and inhumane. This is not how we should treat people. This is not how we treat people as human beings. This is not how we should deal with our differences. I've had enough. And sadly, I've seen nothing in our community but a rise of intolerance and violence against people who have different perspectives, fostering a culture of silence and indifference towards others, the people that are suffering. We are normalizing ambush behavior and we're in mob mentality. This is dangerous and it's destructive. It's not how a civilized and democratic society should function. This is not how we should solve our problems and our challenges. We need to stop this. We need to change this. I have leaders sitting in front of me. You guys have the opportunity to model and promote the importance of taking perspectives of others. You have the opportunity to empathize and communicate with people who have different views and experiences. You have the opportunity to resolve conflicts constructively so that everyone is satisfied with the outcome. You have the opportunity to embrace diversity and celebrate common humanity. But sadly, again and again, I see multiple members on this board continue to show us that the only thing we can rely on is their ability to deepen this divide that already exists. And you know who you are. I'm not going to mention your name. I'm not going to be that evil. So it's time for each and every member of this community. If they're not going to stand up, we need to stand up and we need to change it. We need to take action and speak when we witness these things. Intervene and help our neighbors. Report and condemn this behavior. It's not easy and it takes effort and commitment, but it's worth it. It's worth it if one person can make a difference. Randy Blat was a true gentleman, a father, a grandfather, a husband, my friend, a mentor, my son's teacher, and so much more. He loved Wilson and was proud of all the great things Wilson achieved over these years. He was humble and never gave himself credit for the work he did to help make Wilson what it is. This is how we should honor his memory. We can do this when we can do it together. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. J.R. Koch, Music and Theater Auditorium.
Good evening. Getting old, need to have the glasses. Can I tell you a secret? We all have been waiting for this to come. It's Friday night. The players are warming up. The team has been practicing hard for months, getting ready. The directors have coached the players to their peak of perfection. The crowd is starting to fill into their seats, and the excitement is beginning to build. You can feel the energy in the air as it gets closer to the start time. The announcer begins with the opening commentary, and the crowd cheers. The big show begins with the lead taking the first run hitting all the targets, then passes the ball onto the accompaniment, which raises the crowd's enthusiasm, and the team hits the big score. The fans go wild with applause. Most of you listening to this would think I was describing a Friday night sporting event. I'm actually talking about the anticipation of the upcoming fall production of Charlie Brown, the first musical performance of this season for the extremely talented Wilson Theater Company. It's very interesting to hear how closely the sporting events and theatrical productions are similar. All teams and individual players work hard for years perfecting their talents to achieve their goals. Both have caring coaches directing the player to achieve success. Again, very interesting, all the similarities. The one big difference here at Wilson is the amount of investment into each over the decades.
1 minute.
We believe with passing this investment into the theater and musical programs, Wilson could produce the next Adele, Jennifer Lopez, Prince, or Tom Cruise. And for the younger generation, Beyonce, Jenna Ortega, Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, or Bruno Mars. Now, let's talk about the fundamentals of Wilson School. Academics are the foundation of the school. Athletics have always been the lifeblood of the school. So we have a foundation, a body. We have the blood flow. What's missing? The heart, of course. The heartbeat that keeps everything pumping. The music and theater are the heart of this school. Please, let's come together as a community, as a board, and provide our students with an up-to-date facility to educate, inspire, and invest in the future of our performing arts students here at Wilson. Keep the heart of Wilson beating. Keep the Bulldog proud. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes the public participation portion of the meeting. The board met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss contract and litigation matters. Moving on to the agenda. Approval of minutes, 2.1, looking for a motion to approve minutes of the school board meeting held on 10/16/23.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Payment of bills, Mr. Negrini?
Motion to approve the payment of bills in the amount of $3,364,103.76 from the general fund as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 3.1. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
Thank you. Tonight, it presents all items under superintendent's report, inclusive of 4.1 through 4.7. A couple people in here I'd like to call special attention to. First is under 4.1, Mary and Mario, first grade teacher at Spring Ridge Elementary School, 35 years of service to the Wilson School District. Many of us know Mary Plummer. Many of the students that have gone through Spring Ridge have had her as a teacher. Just really sets the standard for what a primary educator should be. Mario Scarpino also has been a fixture in our operations in our building maintenance group here for more than 2 decades. Some of his family members work here as well, so you might see some other Scarpinos as you're out and about. I'm just really happy for him that he's able to enter into this next stage of his life and enter into retirement. So thank you to Mario and Mary for a collective, 60 years of service to our school district. Under resignation and end of service, we have two folks have talked about the contributions of Randy Blat on our school district, I think, as a board member. But one thing that many folks may not know about Randy is that he was still an employee of the Wilson School District up until October 19th. Prior to that, his passing, we were engaged in an email communication, which I think really kind of gives you a glimpse into who Randy was as a substitute teacher specifically. He sent me an email one morning, and basically it was just reflecting on his day in the lower house where he was in for a history teacher, specifically during period 8. Another teacher came in to support him and actually taught the lesson, which I think speaks volumes to the teachers in that hallway supporting each other. He calls out the teacher by name, Charles Eisenware. Said he was the best teacher that he has seen in several years. He was just amazing, exclamation point. The way he handled everything, from memorizing their names and dealing with a difficult student, his way of discussing the subjects was perfect. I would hire him in a second. Randy. And I think that shows a nice glimpse into Randy, who he was as an educator. I know a lot of students were very sad of his passing as well. He was a fixture in our buildings, and he will definitely be missed. Quite a few other folks on here. Child rearing leave, just want to call attention to Sarah, who's here with us tonight. Wish her the best as she is expecting twins. So she will go into her child rearing leave beginning tomorrow. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve Superintendent's Report, items 4.1 through 4.7 as presented.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Mr.
Martin can go.
Mr. Martin, seniority.
There's been talk about Randy tonight, and I'm going to say a few words about Randy. Wilson New Community lost a great supporter by the name of Randy Blat to a massive stroke a couple of weeks ago. Randy was a compassionate man, one of kindness and greatness. He's one of the best persons I've ever known. I first met Randy at a protest to keep the Lower Heidelberg Elementary School open in 1996. As the anointed speaker for that task, I had many conversations with Randy, and we agreed to disagree on the closing, but in the end, he was more concerned about what was best for the students versus what was best for the parents. This was his characteristic throughout the meetings as I sat with him on the board. We served many years together, and we kept in touch on occasion. That changed about 4 years ago when he felt the need to become involved again. Randy would often call, or we'd have lunch together, talk about an agenda item, or just talk about the school in general. Ultimately, the conversation usually ended in talking about our family and grandchildren. In fact, a few weeks ago, he talked to me in great length about his grandparents' day at the school with his grandson. What is sad about this passing is that I'm not sure it was his time. I was the last person to speak to Randy, alive. He called me late on Monday night after the board meeting around 10 o'clock. While he often called me a day or two after a board meeting, this was very unusual for him. I did not know what happened after the board meeting that night until the next day, and I wish I did, as I might have been able to do more for him. But I did not understand the stress in his voice during the conversation. On the call, he was very upset, his tone was alarming, and he spoke about the meeting. By the end of the conversation, his voice became less intense. His last words to me, "Have a good night, I'm going for a piece of pie." He was found unconscious the next morning. I will miss Randy in our talks, but in the end, this is a tragedy for Wilson and the community. Randy is now looking down from heaven, and I hope he knows all the people that loved him. God bless you and your family.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Negrini?
Just to add to what Mr. Martin had to say, Randy Blat loved the Wilson School District. He was a regular in and outside the buildings, on our campus. The last interaction I had with Randy was at the football game, as he's been a season ticket holder for a long time, and there was Randy wearing his proud Wilson jacket. And for those that were able to attend his services, to see Randy there in that same Wilson jacket, showing his pride and love for our community, speaks volumes about him. So he certainly will be missed, and is an individual that I think all of us should have some introspection about our pride for the community and what it means to demonstrate that pride. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other discussion on superintendent items? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under consent items, looking for a motion to accept with gratitude the following donations. From LCBC Church, $13,800 for the purchase of a new projector in the West Middle School auditorium. LCBC worked with the district's technology and AV department to identify and upgrade equipment that they will use during the term of their upcoming lease of the space. The equipment will remain the property of the district following the completion of the rental period. Looking for a motion to accept 5.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 6.1, request to authorize the superintendent to make employment commitments to qualified applicants for the purpose of filling vacancies that occur after the November 6, 2023 board meeting, with action to be ratified by the school board at the next following meeting. 6.2, request to approve the updated support staff compensation ranges as attached. 6.3, request to approve the updated rates for support staff employees hired after July 1st, 2023 to align with the support staff compensation ranges as attached. And 6.4, request to approve extending the employee referral program as attached. Looking for a motion to approve Human Resources Agenda Items 6.1 through 6.4.
Hart, so moved.
Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, 7.1, request approval for the renewal of service agreements with Wyomissing School District to provide special education services to 4 Wyomissing students attending Wilson School District during the 2023-24 school year, to be invoiced monthly for services provided at the agreed-upon hourly rates as attached. 7.2, request approval of the IDEA-B agreement with the BCIU in the amount of $1,215,470.24 to be used for special education costs in the 2023-24 fiscal year as attached. 7.3, request permission to ratify contracts with New Story for 3 special education students for 2023-24 school year services at a cost of $366 per student per day, beginning 8/24/23 and ending 7/26/24. 7.4, request approval of a resolution approving and adopting a student discipline waiver and consent agreement dated October 24th, 2023. 7.5, request approval of a settlement agreement and waiver for a special education student in the amount of $12,500 to be held in a compensatory education fund and $6,000 in attorney fees in exchange for a full waiver of past claims. 7.6, request approval for a service agreement with Michelle Seska, an independent contractor, to provide part-time supplemental speech and language therapy services at a as requested at a rate of $80 per hour under the terms of the agreement as attached. 7.7, request approval of a service agreement with the Anthromed Education to provide a contracted full-time speech and language therapist to support special education students and programs at the agreed-upon rate for up to 35 hours per week, invoiced monthly, pending solicitor review and approval. Looking for a motion to approve student service items 7.1 through 7.7.
President Cocker, can we take
Yes.
7.7 and separate that from the rest, please?
Absolutely. So changing the motion, looking for a motion to approve student service items 7.1 through 7.6.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
And that leaves us with 7.7. Looking for a motion to approve 7.7 as presented.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Hart, thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Case?
Yeah, I'd like to understand, there's certain parts of this contract, I don't think it's really written well, where there's a rate missing from the contract that we're not allowed to talk about, or that's not, specifically not written in the contract, and I'm kind of curious why. I mean, I'm a no if we're not going to have a rate in the contract.
Dr. Hoffert, could you come up to discuss why the rate's not posted?
Thank you. And I will say, since we put this agenda item on, the contract has been reviewed and approved by our solicitor. There is a confidentiality clause in the main service agreement when it comes to the rate for competitive reasons with other service providers. We do have a separate rate sheet that was included in the confidential area for the board to review that is specific to the provider that we'll be bringing in under this contract. So that is included in the other information. But just not for public because of the confidential nature of that clause.
And from the Sunshine Act, if someone would ask for that.
I would have to ask Mr. Maravich about that.
Right to know. Sorry, sitting here, I don't know the analysis, but I think there's, if I'm looking at this correctly, quickly enough, to the extent we were required under the right to know, it would be then produced.
Right.
We can't waive a third party or 30's rights to ask for information.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hoffert. Any other discussion for 7.7? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
No.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Under Technology and Media, 8.1, request approval to renew the contract with Lincoln Intermediate Unit IU12 for E-rate consulting services for the E-rate fiscal year 2024. Final cost is dependent on the final number of E-rate submissions and final reimbursement amount. Looking for a motion for 8.1.
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Operations, 9.1, request approval of the following bids for the High School Performing Arts Center. General Construction, Stubner Contracts, $14,686,000, with selected alternates of $620,000 for a total of $15,306,000. HVAC Construction, JBM Mechanical, Inc., $2,870,000. Plumbing Construction, J.R. Reynolds, $844,600. Electrician Construction, Hernizen Electric, $2,159,000, with selected alternate of $2,200 for a total of $2,161,200. Total bids with recommended alternates, $21,181,800. Looking for a motion for 9.1.
So moved. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Negrini, second.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Case?
Yes, first of all, thank you for Dr. Trickett and Mr. Simcox and the entire team for keeping us focused during this phase of the Performing Arts Center. We were all over the map as a board, as an administration a couple of years ago, and through the guidance of trying to laser focus and accomplish something, we got to this point tonight. I also want to thank Christine and the Financial Committee. By the way, I understand that we haven't voted on this. I'm just putting some thanks out before a question. Christine and the Finance Committee for putting the slide together and really giving us an understanding of where we were, and also where in August, or a couple of months back, where we thought we had $15.2 million for Phase 2, where we're now at 16.2. From the Finance Committee and Christine, thank you for keeping us funded for the future endeavors that we're going to, potentially see. And then Sean and Crabtree and Rohrbach for designing a fantastic building that's really going to, if we move forward with this, be a great asset to, all of our students, not just theater and music students. And then with also the music and theater teachers and the students that have been involved to help with the design and needs, and the community for their support all along the way since this laser-focused endeavor. So I want to thank everyone for the support. One of the questions I'd like to learn a little bit more about for the community's aspect is that there were some core samples that were done prior to the bids. So when we talk about the $620,000 as an insurance policy, when we look at PP&L, and they spent almost $2 million, or it was $1 million for going through the rock when they were putting their lines in. And with our core samples, it's we're going 13 or 11 or 13 feet down for the pit for the orchestra. We can hit rock, and we can have costs way upward of $1 million plus. So $620,000 as an insurance policy is money well spent, if anyone's asking. And then with the fact that being 3.2% over where we were, in the grand scheme of things, this will never get cheaper to build than where we are now. So I just want to say thanks for getting us here and the support, and I'm hoping we have a 9-0 vote tonight for this. It's long overdue for Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Mr. Schneider?
As someone who has been using or sitting in that auditorium pretty much my entire life, this was a long time coming. In my time at Wilson, the new gym got constructed my senior year. I didn't get to use it, but it got built. The stadium's been rehabbed. The aquatics facility has been rehabbed. It's time to make sure that our performing arts students get the same treatment that our athletics does. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Other comments? Mr. Martin?
Yes. While I support the new auditorium, I did have a problem with the process that prevents me from voting yes for this. In the beginning, I warned the past administration team that what we endeavored on was malaligned with the goals of the school. As you know, we spent $2.5 million on that endeavor, which I warned, once again, the administration, I'm saying the past administration, that this was not the best way to pursue. To a degree, I blame the consultants, not Sean, he wasn't part of that, as well as, I said, the past administration. Wasting $2.5 million to me is still something that's hard for me to swallow, so that's why I'm voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper? Yes. Dr. Kennedy? Yes. Mr. Martin?
No.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Under Finance, 10.1, request approval of the proposed settlements of business privilege and mercantile tax matters with specific taxpayers and to authorize the district's chief financial officer to enter into the settlement agreements, subject to approval of the language of the agreements by the district's business privilege tax attorney. 10.1, request approval of the professional services agreement with Markham LLP for mercantile business, privilege tax compliance, audits, and related consulting services at $215 an hour, pending solicitor review and approval. 10.3, request approval of a 2-year agreement renewal between the Wilson School District and the Wilson Education Foundation for administrative support services not to exceed $26,000 per year. And 10.4, request approval of the budget transfers dated June 30th, 2023 as attached. Looking for a motion to approve finance agenda items 10.1 through 10.4.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Curriculum and Staff Development, 11.1, request approval of the Athletic Training Student Internship Affiliation Agreement between Alvernia University and Wilson School District, pending solicitor review and approval. 11.2, request approval of the 2023-24 Albright College Wilson School District Dual Enrollment Agreement as attached, pending solicitor review and approval. 11.3, request approval of the School Guidance Affiliation Agreement with Messiah University and Wilson School District, pending solicitor review and approval. 11.4, request approval of a cohort affiliation agreement with Westchester University. And 11.5, request approval of an agreement with Renaissance to provide continuum of learning and universal screening tools to Wilson School District effective 12/1/23 through 11/30/24 at a cost of $52,769.25, pending solicitor review and approval. I'm looking for a motion to approve curriculum and staff development agenda items 11.1 through 11.5.
President Cocker, I
Yes.
apologize.
No problem.
I see a typographical error under recommended action of 11.5. Says 52,7699. It is an extra 9 prior to the decimal place. I don't know.
I don't have it on mine. Oh, okay. So in the recommended action, but not in the public content. I see. Mr. Maravich?
The actual motion is for the right number.
Okay, so we'll make that change in the minutes.
Okay.
Recommended action. But it's correct below that, correct?
That's correct.
Right, okay. So we are good to move on to the motion. Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve curriculum and staff development agenda items 11.1 through 11.5.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Martin?
Mr. Martin, thank you. Any discussion? Dr. Kennedy?
This is not meant to talk my fellow board members out of voting for this. That's why I'm not asking for it to be pulled out. I want to thank Dr. Stout and Dr. Cachufio for doing the best that they could. But as a protest, I'm going to be voting no on this because of 11.5, spending $52,769 on a universal screener. This is a mandate coming from PDE. I believe it's overstepping. PDE is not supposed to tell us what and how to teach. We have the state standards. And this is an attempt to strong-arm school districts into choosing from a list of potential screeners, none of which are valid measures of reading success. We have a universal screener that we use, the F&P, that we already learn a lot about readers. This F&P is not on this list because right now PDE is trying to force us to teach using structured literacy. While we believe in phonics, we believe in teaching phonics, we believe in phonemic awareness. Our teachers do that. We have a phonics program. PDE is really strong-arming this. I was at a meeting about the new structured literacy mandates, and multiple college professors from multiple different universities attended this meeting. All of them said no, that this is not how our literacy should be moving in schools right now, in a very united kind of way. There are ways that we can check students' progress with phonemic awareness, with phonics, that doesn't cost $52,769. I believe that this is a follow the money kind of thing with PDE, that a lot of people stand to make a lot of money from this structured phonics stuff. And it doesn't come from the regular ed side of the house. It comes from the special ed side of the house. I fear that this is going to do what I've seen in other districts. Other districts that have universal screeners teach things like, they teach kids how to solve nonsense words. I spend the first 6 months of first grade teaching kids they're not allowed to make up words. But then we have a universal screener with nonsense words. That makes no sense to me. The one that they chose, and this is the best of the list, for sure. I can't say enough about how Dr. Stout and Dr. Cachufio did their due diligence, but this isn't a computer program. I believe that putting a 6-year-old in front of a computer automates that. That's not a valid assessment of that child's reading ability, period. I know they have to do this. They're made to do this, just like we have to take the PSSAs. But I believe that this is severe overreach by PDE and some of the people that are in PDE that perhaps don't have the best intentions.
Thank you, Dr. Handy, for the warning and also the information that we have to pick a program. Unfortunately, the one that you mentioned, FMP, wasn't an option.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that background information. Other discussion on curriculum and staff development?
So it begs the question, right, what would happen if we all said no to this tonight? I mean, does Wilson fall apart? Do we start getting lawsuits? Why do we need this?
Yeah, I would like to bring Dr. Stout or Dr. Cachufo up to talk a little bit more about the screener and why it's on the agenda tonight.
So, Mr. Case, Wilson will not fall apart if we don't do this. There's a back end to why we want to use this screener over any other choices that we have, and that's because we're also starting a MTSS program at our elementary schools that is a multi-tiered system of support. So Tier 1 is our general ed curriculum. Tier 2 is general ed curriculum with more support for students, and Tier 3 is general ed curriculum with more support than Tier 3. So it really does focus on, we want to have 80 to 85% of our students be successful in the general ed curriculum. 5 to 10% is successful with those Tier 2 supports, and then that last 5% that would hit the 100, and in almost like a pyramid, would be the ones that fall into the Tier 3 level that would get us success. Using the STAR piece, the Renaissance 360 STAR, that gives us just another data overlay to really look at. We're going to start with grades 1 through 5 and then move into grades 6 and 7 next year as we move our MTSS program into the middle schools. It gives us the ability to have more data at our hands. The tests that the kids take on average are about anywhere from 15 minutes to 40 minutes. On an average, 30 minutes of time away from actual academic teaching and learning time. But it gives us a rich data point where we do have some of our Fontes and Pinnell data, but it gives us more. And the data that we get from the state, when we get those reports back, Those reports, we take that test in April or March, and we usually don't have solid data from the state until the beginning of the next school year. So this gives us real-time data. Once kids take these tests, our teachers would be able to go in and pull that data out right away and see where the kids are and compare it to what's happening in the classroom. So it compares our locals to state normed and nationally normed pieces.
Thank you.
So let me ask this question a little bit differently. So we have to do the program, but we don't have to use that service. Is that a correct statement?
So we have to do a program.
Okay.
But the state has a list of pieces that we can use, but they're not mandating that we use anything right now. This is all under Act 55, and right now there's a lot of convolution to Act 55, and what's mandated, what's not mandated. They do have a lot, as Dr. Kennedy said, with pre-service teachers and how the training has to be there for pre-service teachers. They're very solid on that. They're also very solid on the professional learning that needs to happen for teachers that are in our school district, and one of the stipulations under that is a universal screener. Being able to be educated and implementing a universal screener is exactly what the Chapter 49, Act 55 says. Again, there are some pieces of clarity that we need to have. The state needs to give us more clarity on some of these pieces.
Thank you, Dr. Cachufo. Any other discussion on curriculum and staff development? Okay, thank you. Okay, hearing none, looking for a motion. Oh, wait, do we have a motion?
We have a
Yes.
first and a
Okay,
second,
that was just so long. Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
No.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Under Transportation, 12.1, request approval of the purchase for 2 new 9-passenger Ford Transit vans from New Holland Ford through CoStars at a unit cost of $69,758, total cost of $139,516, using funds from the capital reserve funds. And 12.2, request approval to award the bid to purchase 3 used vans from M.A. Brightbill Body Works in Lebanon, PA, for the amount of $136,500, $45,500 per used van, pursuant to the request for bid results opened on October 23rd, 2023. Brightbill was the lowest responsible bidder. Looking for a motion to approve transportation agenda items 12.1 and 12.2.
So moved, Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Food Cafeteria, 13.1, request approval to purchase a new Hobart dish machine for Lower House Cafeteria from Singer Equipment under CoStars for $88,649.73 using 2021 C-bond funds. 13.2, request approval to purchase a new Hobart dish machine for Upper House Cafeteria at $89,066.05 using 2021 C-bond funds. 13.3, request approval to purchase a new walk-in freezer for the Lower House Cafeteria for $35,555.40 using 2021 C-bond funds. 13.4, request approval to purchase a new walk-in freezer for the Upper House Cafeteria for $34,893.95, also from 2021 C-bond funds. And 13.5, request approval to purchase a new warmer for Cornwall Terrace School Cafeteria from Singer under CoStars for $18,549.05 using capital reserve. And 13.6, request approval to purchase a new cold serving well for Green Valley Elementary School Cafeteria from Singer under CoStars for $14,505.12 using capital reserves. Looking for a motion to approve food cafeteria agenda items 13.1 through 13.6.
So moved, Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Martin?
The items listed under this, they're all for a replacement for a product that, not product, I'm sorry, for the equipment that has been worn out or end of life.
Dr. Trickett?
Sarah? Thank you.
Yes, the answer was yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under early learning childcare, 14.1, request approval to issue a request for proposal for before and after school childcare providers. The district is seeking a provider to manage the program housed in our 5 elementary schools as attached. And 14.2, request approval of retention bonuses for 2023-24 Wilson childcare employees who remain in compensable status until March 1st, 2024, $1,000, and again, June 1st, 2024, $1,000. Looking for a motion to approve early learning childcare items 14.1 and 14.2.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini? Yes.
Can we separate these?
Sure. So let's just look for a motion for 14.1.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion for 14.1?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini, go ahead.
First and foremost, I appreciate the comments made by two of the individuals that came forward earlier tonight on this issue. I had the benefit of both of my children going through the before and after childcare programs at Green Valley, and I recognize what a tremendous benefit it is to working parents, working families, to have their children safe when they're unable to care for them as they leave for work or can't get out of work early. So to that extent, this is coming from a point of view from someone who has realized its benefits and recognized the struggles, when school is closed for inclement weather, and you need to make alternative arrangements for children. Secondly, there's been a lot of thought, discussion that have gone into this RFP to try to address not only the concerns of parents with children that take advantage of this program, but also to the dedicated employees that the district has had for a number of years, and to continue to the best of our ability, provide an opportunity for those individuals to work here, recognizing, as was pointed out by public comment, that individuals that are currently Wilson employees may no longer be Wilson employees should the district at a later date accept the proposals from third-party providers. But it's important for everyone to remember that there is no requirement of this district to provide this service at all. There are some districts that do not afford that opportunity for their community members. And so, we, through discussions and certainly through Dr. Stout and others, have tried to come up with the best possible resolution that will maintain this benefit for our community members. And even up until the last moment, and the gentleman spoke about communication, there was the best efforts made by our staff here to open up Green Valley, and it's never something that that we would like to spring upon families at the last minute. But because of certain requirements regarding staffing to student ratios, to the number of certifications that those employees are required to have in order to be in charge of the program there, Green Valley unfortunately was left without before and after school childcare. This is a RFP. It does not mean that the district is required to accept this, and it is supposed to be a one-year pilot program to figure out whether or not what would be offered, if it is accepted, would be worthwhile moving forward, whether or not we can go back to making some other changes to keep this particular program. So all things considered, nothing is perfect, nothing is ideal, but I think under the circumstances, this is the best alternative for our community. And so I'm in favor of sending 14.1 out for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Mr. Schneider?
Yeah, I will echo Mr. Negrini. All three of my children use the program, and I think they benefited greatly from it. I won't say when it was, but I was one of the earliest when this program was piloted in the first place. And what really got me coming to board meetings was a previous attempt to outsource this, because I strongly believe that this is a service best served in-house by Wilson employees. The struggles recently have made us have to look at alternatives, and I would say that that's all this is at this point, is a look at alternatives. This is not us dissolving the program. This is just us getting proposals for what the structure would look like if a third-party provider came in. Again, I don't think it's ideal, but at this point, at the level of involvement I've had, I don't see a way to not at least examine the possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Mr. McCray?
Yes. I do want to start out by acknowledging that I think the administration has done yeoman's work to try to recruit additional personnel to staff Green Valley and to obviously support before and after childcare across all 5 of the elementaries. And I fully agree it's a difficult position to staff due to the requirements of the position, due to the time of the position, the hours of the position, and so forth like that. That being said, I don't support the RFP here. I think there's an opportunity lost here where we should not be putting out an RFP to manage all 5 of the elementary schools. I think there's an opportunity here to pilot it, maybe at 1 or 2 schools, but not go for such a transformational approach to how we provide before and after childcare in such a drastic way. Again, in my organization, when we go to move forward with these kinds of initiatives, we don't typically go all in. We do it as a pilot and test it out and see what works. We make adjustments and we move forward. So without a pilot potential here, I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Other discussion? Dr. Kennedy?
Much like Mr. Schneider, I was mortified last go at this when we suddenly had this seemingly random idea that we're going to outsource our childcare. This is very, very different. I want to thank Dr. Stout for her work and her team's work into trying desperately to find new employees. She may or may not have followed people in and out of their job to ask if they were happy. And I want to thank her for having the town hall. I think that was super important for community outreach, and I want to thank all the parents that were able to come to that town hall and to listen to the proposal and get our ideas. I think it really opened some eyes as to not only the work that went in to try and find employees, but also the mountains and mountains of paperwork and requirements that are required above and beyond for to have a child care center. I do want to say again, and I said this at the town hall, we would not be doing this if we had the employees. If 10 people lined up tomorrow and said we want to do, we wouldn't need to do this. And that's what I think hurts the most, because I can see it both ways. I have been, I'm a mom of 4, and I've had childcare pulled out from under the rug for me, and it has been devastating. It is the worst feeling in the world when you find out in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, you don't have a place for your 2.5-year-old to go while you're at work. And when my child with special needs was born, I thought I was going to have to quit, because piecemealing childcare for an entire year until we found an appropriate place for him, I really didn't. I thought either I was going to have to be a stay-at-home mom or Steve was going to have to be a stay-at-home dad, because it truthfully is the worst feeling as a parent, and my heart breaks for those people that are going through this at Green Valley right now. And I don't ever want any of our Wilson families to feel that. And I feel like, as much as I love our child care workers, and they are part of the team, and when I worked at Whitfield, I knew them all, and they became friends, and they were truly part of the Whitfield family. I also don't want us to ever be in this spot again where we have, 20 families at Green Valley that are just praying that we find people. And I do want to reiterate what was already said, is this is just a step. This is nothing set in stone. We could get nobody coming back, say that they want to have our childcare, or we can get 10 people and they could all be awful. We don't have to say yes to anything that comes in. So I feel like, because it's just a process vote, I feel more comfortable voting yes on it. I think when the time comes down to actually accept a third-party provider, I think that will be the much more difficult vote.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Other discussion? Mr. Case?
Yes, likewise, my family invested in this program and had a lot of success, and, my kids love the teachers in the morning and the afternoon, so, my family's heart is in this as well. Sean, you bring up a great point with the pilot project. My understanding is if you say no to this, we're closing up shop. If there's an alternative, Dr. Stout, if you can come up and maybe talk a little bit about what alternatives have been looked at. I didn't see the town hall. I apologize for that. But I'm sitting here thinking that if I say no to this, we get 5 no's, we're not going to have child care for families. Is that accurate? Or are there alternatives? Do we need to go forward with this as written?
Dr. Chickett?
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Stout, would you mind coming up to give us a little bit more information on the process and the next steps?
And the reason I bring this up as well, a couple of emails came in today, some of the public comment as well, where, Peasers being lost, potentially folks being paid less than what they actually were making as employees. I'd like to understand the accuracy of that. And
Sure. Yeah, so let me tackle those first, and then I'll answer the ultimate question that you had about what happens if you say no. Okay. So in terms of the specifics around, employees not getting Peasers, well, that would be true. That is accurate, that unless they're working for a public school entity, working within the Peasers system, they would not receive the Peasers benefit. I do know that there are some organizations that could potentially propose to partner with us for this RFP that offer retirement benefits. It is not Peasers, but it is retirement. Others do not. So there is that option. And again, to the point that was made, this is just a request to see what could be potentially proposed. And as part of the scope of the work of the proposal, all of those things have to be detailed in very clear form. So in terms of, I'm trying to remember each of those points that were made, in terms of, the wage, the proposal does make account for a raised wage even beyond what we did set the raise to be. In recent months, the board approved the pay rate for both lead teacher and the assistant to be raised in hopes to retain and even attract new staff members. But the RFP goes beyond that just a bit. Could that be higher? I suppose it could. When we worked together to develop this request, it was simply considering the fact that PSERS would not be available to an employee, and we would try to make up a little bit of a differential there and still stay within a rate that would be reasonable in terms of what childcare providers are offering in the community and what the comparables could potentially look like. With regard to concerns over not being part of our school system or not being considered part of the family any longer, it would be my personal expectation, and I hope the board's expectation, that any Wilson child that's part of this community of Wilson families would be treated with the same support and respect. They're going to be housed in our school buildings, and so I would want the children and the staff members, regardless of whether they're employed by a third party, they're in our space with our children, and they would need to be, at least in my estimation, treated like they are citizens of Wilson and that they belong there. The use of the facility is at our discretion, so I wouldn't worry about whether or not our students would be afforded the same use of space. All of those concerns it would make sense to me that since we're holding the cards with being in charge of the space, that it wouldn't be dependent upon who's using that space per se, organizationally, but more that it's our space. So those are kind of the things that were in my mind as I was listening to those questions that you just asked. But I will be perfectly transparent and say that it had been my understanding that to get an organization to come in and propose that this could be a process they would be interested in would potentially mean that we would have to consider all 5. That's not saying that we have to do that. So should the board say that, we want to do this in just one center, we could potentially do that. We just run the risk of then potentially having other organizations that could want to partner with us say that they're not interested in running a single center because it's a large time investment, licensure, all kinds of paperwork, as was mentioned before, to go through a process for a single center at Wilson. I would tell you, though, that it's something that the board could decide.
So you could do an RFP for one, and if you get no responses, do an RFP for all 5 later.
Yeah, I mean, there's potential for that, should the board decide that's the direction to go in.
Can you just talk a little bit about the offer to the employees to potentially keep their PSERS, that they could choose to do another?
Sure. And when I did have the opportunity to talk with the staff, I mentioned to them that we're very much invested in keeping these same individuals, and you'll see that from the next item, the one that's discussing employee retention bonuses, but it is important for us that we keep our staff, and it's important to our families that the relationships that they have with the children at Wilson are maintained. And I think that speaks very highly to the employees, that, some of whom are here and others are not. And they're very loved in the Wilson community. So if they should choose to want to continue being part of the PSERS system, the suggestion was that we do have a number of open positions that they potentially could elect from, including paraprofessionals, kindergarten aides, first grade teaching assistants. I mean, I certainly could generate a list in the future, should we have individuals interested in doing that, so that they can continue to be part of the Wilson family and then work also in the childcare. And many of the individuals that we're talking about also do have a second job. So that could be a potential possibility if they really are invested in staying part of the PSER system. Yeah.
So, Mr. Ravitch, since we've already had a first and a second, I can't propose an edit to the agreement for one center versus all five, correct?
So if you move to amend,
Mhm.
you can move amend the agenda item. Because you're in the discussion, you're at the discussion phase now, you have a vote on it. So you can move to amend what the proposal is. The actual language of the agreement, I think, leaves options up to the district as to what they consider. I mean, I know it does, and what they decide to vote on. I heard what you said, I'm sorry. Turn my mic on. I heard what you said, but to me, the better approach, and the administration, I think, should address this, is to go out with one RFP with allowing the administration, and with the board's input to discuss all the options. So because if you go through this and you say one pilot, and then that doesn't quite work out, then, my recollection is on the licensing issue, there's a significant timing issue here. I know it sounds crazy to believe that that's the case because we're, it's November and we're talking about August of next year, but my understanding is the state takes a while to approve any of these licenses. So it would be my recommendation, but I would, I want the administration, is that you be flexible then, have the proposers propose on, here's what it would look like if we do multiple, almost bid alternates. I'll say it that way. We're proposing, or say we don't want to propose on all of them, we just want to propose on one, because then you'll get all that in at one time and have that detail. And then it can be considered by one of the committees, and you can address going forward from there. But I think if you do one type of RFP and then come back with an RFP in 3 months, you're probably running your timeline to the point where, it's not going to work for administration, for the board, or for the community. That's, again, that's my 2 cents, maybe out of line a little bit, but I think that you probably need to rather put the options in one RFP, and then the board can address what they want to consider.
I just want to point out, it is 90 days to get the licensure. So if we were decided on January 1st, it would take 90 days for the licensure to go through, and you're already in the enrollment period for childcare for the next year in March.
Right, so to Mr. Moravich's point, and kind of also to satisfy your request, Mr. McRae, is the language currently in the RFP that would allow for a company to propose both options?
Again, technically, the board does not need to vote on an RFP, because this service the board could decide just to pick anyone. If you want to amend the resolution to say that we add language, that's fine, but the RFP in it itself doesn't need to go before the board, from a legal perspective anyway. For notifying the community, let them know, I agree, put it before the board, let the community know about it. But we can add those changes to the RFP we can add it to the notice, which will spell out that we can provide the notice that will go out, and it will go on the website that will specifically say, let us know whether you can staff for all 5, whether you propose on one, multiple. That's the other timeline issue here that, again, I think just practicality. Even if they start getting the licensing approval, they need to line up the employees. So that's why, initially I thought the timing line was really long, and then I realized it's almost in concept right now when you're approaching people. And then what entities, whether they're kind of private entities, public entities, might be interested in doing this would take a long process if they need board approvals to go out to even propose. I'm not sure if I answered your question or made it even more complicated. If you want to amend, you move to amend, and then they would vote on the amendment of the agenda item. I think you're fine because there hasn't been a vote taken on it. So you can move to amend to have that language added. You don't need the language, you don't need to re-vote on this in 2 weeks.
Is the license all or nothing? Can you refresh my memory on that? Or can you do it?
You mean all five?
The license is specific to the site. I just, in regard, just to caution the board regarding a complete split, it would not be advisable to have multiple service advisors in each of our schools. That would be very difficult, I believe, for our community and for our families and for our leadership team, quite frankly, to be able to support 4, 3, 2 different programs. I believe that the intent, part of the RFP was written in a way to ascertain what type of outside providers could handle this type of volume. This is not typical, that school districts run child cares before and after school centers in every building. What's more typical is that school districts will select a center where the children will go. So I think the RFP is specified, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Stout, as you took the lead on this, to really get interest from a proposal from a vendor that can actually meet the needs as outlined, which could be upwards of 36 kids per site in a before and after school, or 50 even, possibly, depending on the situation. So the other piece I would just to bring up, I was not the superintendent at the time, however, one of the reasons we're bringing forth the RFP, although it's not required by law, is we wanted to have this conversation. So I'm very happy that we're having a conversation, inclusive of the community feedback on this particular topic.
Okay, thank you for all of the discussion and feedback. Is there any other discussion on this particular item?
So I would like to make a motion to amend the language in the RFP to make it for the entities to bid from anywhere from 1 to 5 centers as opposed to all 5.
I got a problem here. We talked about this in executive session 2 weeks ago, and everybody was on board except Ron. He was a no, but we took a straw vote, and we're going around in circles now. And I'm not sure I understand that, because we gave the administration direction based on straw vote where we wanted to go. So I'm not sure, I understand what we're trying to talk about, but there's pros and cons of doing everything. I think we got to move forward as laid out, and let's take a vote. It's administration's responsibility to figure it out if they want to do it. If there's no rules, there's no regulations, this isn't really a vote that's required, so let's just move forward.
No one seconded his motion yet, so just.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the.
Oh, nobody seconded it?
Nobody seconded it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, that's all right, I didn't want to cut you off.
It's like I'm getting tired.
Okay, so we do have a motion to change the language. Do we have a second to Mr. McRae's motion? Okay, Mr. Martin, I think your sentiment is good.
I'm sorry. It's all right.
Okay,
So
no problem.
so just the record will reflect that there was that motion, there was no second, and now the vote on, as long as debate's done, I believe it is, then you can take the motion on the original motion.
Okay, on the
Take the vote
original,
on the
yes, on the original 14.1.
I believe we have a motion in a second.
Yes, we do. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
No.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
14.2, request approval of retention bonuses for 2023-24 childcare employees, $1,000 on March 1st and $1,000 on June 1st. Looking for a motion for 14.2.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Dr. Kennedy, second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under extracurricular, 15.1, request approval of a contract with Market Street Sports and Utilities Employees Credit Union for the sponsorship of the press box at Gursky Stadium for $8,000 a year for 3 years. 15.2, request approval of a contract with Market Street Sports and InstaShine for the sponsorship of the field at Gursky Stadium for $15,000 a year for 3 years. And 15.3, request approval of a contract with Market Street Sports and Reading Orthodontic Group for signboard advertising at Gursky Stadium for $5,000 a year for 3 years. Looking for a motion to approve extracurricular agenda items 15.1 to 15.3.
Schneider.
Mr. Hart, thank you. Mr. Schneider, second. Any discussion? Okay, well, I am excited to see some activity with the Market Street Sports and some local groups advertising in our district. So it's revenue base that we didn't have before. Having a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under policies, this is second reading, there will be no vote. On policy 137, home education programs, 137.1, extracurricular participation by home education students, 137.2, participation in co-curricular activities and academic courses by home education students, and 137.3, participation in career and technology education programs by home education students. Looking for a final vote next meeting. Now on to committee reports, BCTC and Student Services, Mrs. Casper.
Thank you, President Cocker. I do not have a BCTC report. I was unable to make the last meeting on October 25th due to a previously held commitment. Therefore, I have no report there. For Student Services, however, we did meet on November 1st. We talked about the implementation of the 2023 PAYS survey, which has begun, and principals have sent out information to all parents regarding the details around the implementation of the survey in their schools. This is a statewide survey on mental health that's given every other year for certain grades, and parents can opt out of the survey or request more information about the survey by visiting the Evidence-Based Prevention and Intervention Support website at the epis.psu.edu website. We also talked about the mental health series. The next mental health series session is November 29th on emotional regulation. The past sessions were highly interactive, and just a reminder that anyone can register, and if you register, you will also get a recording of the session, so even if you don't attend, you can get the recording. And then all topics have been chosen by families who participated in previous years. Wilson plans on hosting a watch party at the high school library, which will include childcare and food. And for more information will be sent through our district communication. The Cook Center, who provides the sessions, will attend a counseling meeting to help our counselors better promote the coaching opportunities they provide. Regarding feedback received from the district about our kindergarten registration, moving forward, the district is planning to add more in-person appointments for registration and enrollments, also training additional support staff for summer help, and including our community liaison, Adolfo Arteaga, to support with interpreting in Spanish. During our next kindergarten information meeting on January 18th, the district will promote the Building Bulldogs program as well as provide information regarding mental health nights. Postcards will be sent to homes with children under the age of 5, so please look for that in the mail if your household fits that description. Regarding safety and security, there was a district-wide ALICE training on September 15th. The district also included group training for transportation and operations on October 18th. Dr. Hoffert will go back to transportation to conduct an additional training specific to bus drivers. We will also be providing radio upgrades across all our buildings. I wanted to add congratulations to Dr. Hoffert, who will be presenting at the PDE SAS Institute Conference in December. The conference presentation title is Better Together, Schools, Parents, and Students Supporting Mental Health and Wellness. The presentation will feature a panel discussion with our Student Mental Health Council leadership team discussing strategies to break down the stigma around mental health and wellness. This will also be promoted via our district's media formats, social media formats. So that's my report. Our next meeting, I believe, is already in 2024.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. BCIU and Curriculum Committees, Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you. On October 4th, the BCIU held its 2023 Keeping Kids Safe Symposium. That focused on standard response protocol and standard reunification method, and it was attended by 150 school and school district safety teams. Also, there was a common in-service day on Monday, October 9th, which was held throughout all districts, including specials area teachers, special education teachers, and had a lot of different offerings. The last thing that I want to mention is the BCIU heads a program about homelessness in schools, and they attended an event, the Education for Children and Youth Experience Homelessness Region 2 team attended the 3-day Paving the Way to Educational Success Conference in Pittsburgh. The conference was a unique learning opportunity to support children and youth experiencing homelessness and students experiencing foster care. And I think that's an often forgotten demographic, and the BCIU is doing a really nice job with providing supports for those students. Curriculum Committee. On the agenda tonight was the expensive Renaissance Learning Star 360 Universal Screener, which was purchased based on PDE Structured Literacy Plan mandates. Again, that was on this agenda. It cost us what it costs for a teacher for a year. We also had a ton of contracts that we talked about. Really good ones, Alvernia Athletic Training. We always love extra athletic trainers running around. Albright Dual Enrollment. A school counseling internship from Messiah, and Westchester starting another cohort in our schools, and then we're going to have some more contracts coming up with the Kutztown student teachers and the Brandywine Virtual Academy on the next agenda. An update on the Wilson Virtual Academy. Wilson curriculum with Wilson teachers is our goal. Over 20 teachers expressed interest in developing additional virtual courses for the 24-25 school year. The current focus continues to be on developing the core content areas, English, math, science, and social studies. And we are still welcoming teachers to create virtual elective classes for even more flexibility with our students. A curriculum update in the middle level. There's a new library-based specials in 6th and 7th grade, which is awesome. In 6th grade, the course is called Gateway to Information. In 7th grade, the course is called Spark, Sustaining Passionate, Authentic Research for Kids. The first half trimester courses are complete. The students created projects in 7th grade based on their area of interest in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we did see an example of one of those projects. We are changing our next meeting date. It was going to be December 5th. Now it's going to be November 29th at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Berks EIT, Mr. Schlossman.
I have no report,
Extracurricular committee has not met since our last meeting. However, our next meeting is next Monday at noon in the admin building. Facilities committee, Mr. Case.
No report other than we are building a performing arts center. lots to celebrate there, and the fun is going to begin. So just thanks everyone for the support and the entire community and administration and everyone that was mentioned earlier on, building something great for Wilson where students and parents and the community are all going to gather for many, many years into the 21st century. So it's a small celebration tonight, so thank you. The next Facilities Committee meeting is December 11th at 4:30 p.m. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Finance Committee, Mr. Negrini.
Thank you. We met earlier today. Some of the highlights of our meeting, September 2023 year-to-date financial summaries. Our local, state, and federal revenues are on par with last year, and the local, state, and federal expenditures are on par as well from last year. Very early projection of the end of the first quarter has an increase in our general fund revenue of approximately 1.8% or $2.3 million. That would put us at a fund balance prediction of $29.8 million for the end of the year, or 12 weeks of operating costs. We discussed child care fund. There's almost 9 months of covered expenses in their fund. It was pointed out that enrollment at the Berkshire Heights preschool for those that are on a paying basis is down 22 individuals. However, this is in large part based upon families that have initially enrolled and were paying for preschool that had qualified for our pre-K counts. So we are still putting out the word that we have open spots over at Berkshire Heights, hoping to fill those vacancies in the near future. We discussed food services. We have approximately 5 months of covered expenses in the food services account. There's year-to-date, we're serving approximately 100 more lunches per day and 846 more breakfasts than last year. So our food services and certainly what our students are seeking is up, and that is a good thing. What is not is the negative balances. By the end of October of this year, we have a negative balance of a little more than $18,000. Again, we encourage families to reach out with any issues regarding those expenses, qualifying for free and reduced lunches. So we'll continue to communicate that with our families. We discussed hometown ticketing for e-ticketing, potentially moving forward with our extracurriculars. For those that are unaware, the PIAA requires e-ticketing for all district and state events. That has come to a surprise to some, especially those that are not tech savvy. They're still allowing, under certain circumstances, for cash payments, but the district will be experimenting with this option through hometown ticketing. More information in the future on that. The audit process is almost completed, and the final audit will be presented at the second board meeting in December. And then lastly, as we continue to make our way through the 24-25 budget process, we discussed significantly today about tax assessment issues and how that impacts our budget moving forward. We have seen over the last 5 years, from July of 17 through July of 21, an average of 0.2% assessment growth. However, that has slowed a bit in 22 and 23, and that is based upon the common level ratio throughout the county dropping by about 30% over the last 6 years. And so when you see that common level ratio drop, you see an increase in the number of tax and assessment appeals. And just for the 24 tax year, we have seen over 200 tax assessment appeals filed by taxpayers. That results in a loss of tax assessment of $26.3 million, which is the equivalent of a loss of $800,000 or 0.3 mils moving forward for the budget process next year. So again, when I've talked about this previously, about all of the challenges of coming up with a final budget and balancing tax increases with costs in programming, tax assessment appeals, and how that impacts districts is certainly a challenging one over the last 2 to 3 years. So that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Legislative, Mr. Schneider.
The commission that is looking into the new funding system has realized that they have come back with a ton of data and more to get. So they've actually pushed back the completion date for their report from November 30th to January 11th. So we'll have to wait a little longer to see what they've found.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
I have no.
Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Good evening. First and foremost, I want to publicly thank everyone who made our annual Veterans Appreciation Dinner Dance a reality. This event took place this past Saturday in our high school gymnasium and had over 800 people in attendance. You can see on the screen just what a beautiful, beautiful event it was. So we want to offer a huge thank you to Jeff Simcox and his team for facility management and to Matt Citron and his team for media support. But what we really want to do is we want to take a moment to recognize our JROTC cadets who work tirelessly to ensure this event is a reality each and every year. They assist in the setup, they help to run the event, and then they return very early Sunday morning to help with the cleanup. It's important to note that we learned this just at this past dance, that our Veterans Dance is believed to be the largest event in the state of Pennsylvania honoring veterans and the largest JROTC run event in the country. This event is truly an honor for our district to host every year, and we are grateful for the opportunity to help pay tribute to our veterans for their service. This week, school districts across the country are celebrating National School Psychology Week to highlight the important work school psychologists and other educators do to help all students thrive. So we will be recognizing our school psychologists through district communications this week, and we are thrilled to recognize this outstanding team for the incredible work they do for our school community. We also would like you to know that the Grandview Gallery is going to be opening their new exhibit called Winter Wonderland with a reception on November 19th from 1 to 4 p.m. This is a very special exhibition because it celebrates student artists from Whitfield Elementary School. So Whitfield art teacher Mrs. Flanagan worked closely with her students to explore creativity in a fun and positive environment. And the Grandview Gallery is honored to work with Mrs. Flanagan and her wonderfully creative young artists on this exhibit. And then finally, we want to congratulate some outstanding Bulldogs who have been honored with the President's Volunteer Service Award for their extraordinary commitment to community service through the Volunteer Corps of Reading. Receiving this honor are Sindora Sridhar, Athena Worley, Mia Worley, Samantha Martinez, Kemi Ojukutu, Jada Garber, Aaliyah Hollick, and Ellie Hook. The President's Volunteer Service Award is a prestigious national recognition program created to celebrate the remarkable contributions of volunteers across the United States. This award, which is presented on behalf of the President of the United States, acknowledges individuals who have demonstrated an unwavering dedication to volunteerism and service. So can we just take a moment and just be really proud of the fact that we have our very own students being recognized with this honor. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
No report other than there's a meeting on Friday at 7:30 in this room. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray.
Yes, we met on October 23rd, and one of the points we learned was that the BCIU received grant money for 2 intrusion detection systems for their data centers, which is actually where all county districts connect for their internet, so that's a good safety option for us. We also discussed that we as Wilson had sold multiple obsolete tech devices via auction on GovDeals for over $7,200, which is significantly higher than our previous resale venues, so we'll look to probably continue to use that website to resell obsolete equipment. In terms of the Chromebook protection plan statistics, we are at about the same amount as last year. Roughly 30% of the student body took advantage of that option. And finally, with the exception of one, all new badge reader time clocks have been installed, replacing many of the biometric ones we had previously, which were not always successful. So we're happy to use this new technology to more successfully and institute our time clock policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Student Outreach, Mr. Bryce Heilman.
Thank you. As October came to a close, Wilson students continued to stay busy. Both the boys and girls water polo teams were crowned state high school runner-ups, and the girls volleyball team was crowned county champion, now achieving 4 straight county titles. They also placed second in districts and are moving on to states tomorrow. The marching band competed in their annual Cavalcade Championship competition on Saturday, closing out their 2023 season. The Select and Treble choirs held their first concert of the year 2 weeks ago, with the theme being musical theater. They performed a selection of songs from musicals, including some features from the choir's seniors. Last week, several students stayed after school in an effort to help clean up the campus, and also, as Mrs. Strawman mentioned, JROTC and media students spent the day on Thursday as well during the weekend, setting up and helping with Wilson's annual Veterans Appreciation Dance. Elementary schools celebrated Halloween in October with their classroom parties and costumes, and last week, Shiloh Hills had their kindergarten Readers Parade, celebrating their young readers. Whitfield also raised $15,223 for classroom support and building initiatives, and their principal dyed his hair red as a result. And on October 27th, Spring Ridge had their second annual trunk or treat. Some upcoming events: this weekend, West Middle School is doing Finding Nemo, the musical, and next week, the Wilson Theater Company at the high school will be playing its second show of the year and the first musical of the year, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, on Thursday and Friday at 7, and on Saturday at 2. Also, on this Saturday, Minithon will be having a fundraiser at InstaShine Car Wash, where you can go and get your car washed for free, and all donations will go to Wilson Minithon, which the funds go to the Four Diamonds Foundation. Also this week, choir is hosting a Panera fundraiser on Wednesday the 8th, and student government is hosting a Chipotle fundraiser tomorrow from 4 to 8, so you can treat yourself to some Chipotle after voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heilman. Mr. Maravich, we have public participation in non-agenda items. Do you have any announcement personally?
No, I do not. I'll try to truncate these a little bit. Individuals attending the meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner. Public comment is not question and answer, but it's the comment on matters that are or may come before the board, and particular personnel or student matters may not be commented on by board members. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker. The board respectfully requests that you direct your comments to the board as a body, as it's the board as a body that will need to vote on future matters. Calling, clapping out, or cheering, and conversations in the audience are not permitted. Individuals may not approach the board tables and should make their comments from the lectern. Comments are 3 minutes, and I'll try to provide a 1-minute warning that does not disrupt the discussion. Any person making threats may be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Chastity Santiago, Civil Discourse.
So, the most powerful intervention to stop the cycle of incivility is speaking up. Unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, community silence has begun to normalize this horrible behavior of ambushing people and mob mentality. And this is coming directly from the supporters of Denny, Casper, Snyder, McCree, and Hart, normalizing such statements as they're actually saying Israel has the foot of the Palestinian people, they've been on the neck of the Palestinian people for decades, calling Republicans effing gross, and not some of them, but all of them. That's not normal. Normalizing toxic leadership, such as at the candidate forum, where, Bob, you stated, we're going to drop the ball sometimes, and I tried my best. Well, Sir Winston Churchill once said, it is not enough that we do our best. Sometimes we must do what is required. So I ask you, suppose you board an airplane. You hear, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Today we will try to fly this plane all the way to Paris. If I heard such an uncertain announcement from the highest-ranking leader on that airplane, I'm certain I would get off and try to catch the next flight. So I ask you, what will it take for you to do more than try? Lupe, you stated my main goal is to ensure that our entire Wilson community is represented. However, during various meetings, you've publicly accused our friends and neighbors of white supremacy and white privilege. You encourage student resistance in all forms. You applaud classroom learning disruptions. You admire efforts to intimidate students. And my favorite, you stereotyped English as a language of power. Your tokenism is not diversity. And Jenny, you highlighted your qualifications as a middle-class married white woman and parent seeking staff diversity for 27% who identify as Latino. However, the PSBA clearly states the board's role is governance. You don't need children to do this job. The 27% Latino enrollment you mentioned is in fact Hispanic. It's considered Hispanic by the Department of Education, not Latino. I am Hispanic, not Latino. There is a difference. Educate yourself. And while you may pick your doctor, dentist, electrician, plumber based on their skin color, that's your choice, but you have no right to push your discriminatory practices on the rest of this community. Honestly, Jenny, you've become the master of the art of weaponizing your status as a white woman to promote your discontent for non-family households and unconscious desire to dominate minorities. Disagreement does not have to equal hate. One side does not have to win for the other to lose. Why can't we just simply want our kids to be prepared for the world they will face without putting a severe financial burden on the community in these trying economic times? I've decided that my vote will be cast for Delp, Lockhart, Murray, Orzechowski, Stonehall, because I have a choice. I have a choice to stand up, or I could choose to stand by. And I'm going to stand up for my friends and neighbors. I'm going to vote for something, not against something. I'm going to vote for civility. I'm going to vote for people who want to hold others accountable. I'm going to hold for people who want diversity, they want inclusion, and who have accepted me for who I am and not what they want me to be.
Thank you for your comments. Carol Gardecki, test scores.
Wilson test scores seem to be declining compared to other school districts in the county. Board members and administration in their approach say it's just one test. That one test happens to be the only benchmark used by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So it isn't just one test. It's the only test that matters. We need to have more emphasis on studying and homework. One problem I hear about is lack of discipline. A couple of weeks ago, a teacher quit abruptly after being harassed by several students. By all reports that I heard, there was no punishment for the offenders. Some of our problems that are going on are fights in the cafeteria, dirty halls and bathrooms, gum spit out on the floors, and so on. There have to be consequences for bad behavior. While I believe that most of our school board members do care about our school, we do have a problem on the board. Even the administration is concerned that our board needs to be balanced. 4 of the 5 candidates on the Democrat side are in education. The board does not need more members of academia. We need more diversity, people from other occupations and other points of view. Our students need to be taught how to think, not what to think. Tomorrow, you will vote. Take seriously who you're going to vote for. Thank you. I also want to mention, I'm glad it was brought up about the dinner dance on Saturday. I attended it for the first time, and it was beautiful. And our OTC people, the teacher, the kids, and anybody else that had a hand in it, congratulations. You did our school proud. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jeff Berg, election.
There seems to be some people who want to talk about the events that took place after the last board meeting, but are afraid to actually say anything at all. Well, I'm not afraid to say what happened. The wife of candidate Craig Stoneha, Lisa Marie Stoneha, claimed that parents in this community threatened the safety of their family. Me, being one of the accused, wanted to know what proof they had of this ridiculous accusation. So I approached Mr. Stoneha. Mr. Blat was there. I didn't speak to him or engage with him. Instead of just answering the question, Mr. Stoneha hid behind his supporters who felt it was necessary to treat him like a celebrity being mobbed by the media. That's what happened. The whole encounter with Mr. Stoneha lasted 36 seconds, and there is raw video to prove it. I suggest you watch it before suggesting it might not be his time. Later, Mr. Blat tragically passed away. Right before the student forum, candidate Amy Murray suggested that I was responsible for causing his stroke. This comment was specifically meant to put a target on my back. What's even more concerning is that her fellow slate mates never stepped up to say her words were inappropriate and vile. Is this civility? After repeatedly saying they want to encourage civil discussion about policy, the silence of candidates Delp, Orzechowski, Lockhart, and Stoneha proved that they had one more lie to tell every voter. Tomorrow, we all have a decision to make. What direction do we want to take our school? This is not an election about which policy works better for our district. It's about basic decency and moral character, which Craig and his candidates have none of. The responsible parents for Wilson School Board candidates are endorsed by nationally recognized hate groups with national extremist agendas. One of those groups, Berks County Patriots, was sponsored by the Oath Keepers, the same Oath Keepers that helped plan and execute an insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. This is a group that rather accuse parents of threatening violence and blame the tragic death of a community member on someone who never spoke or engaged with him than answer for their egregious lies and gaslighting that have been well documented. Is this the type of leader we want our children to model? When you walk into that voting booth tomorrow, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent. Ask yourself if you want a decent person making decisions that affect your kids and your school. If the answer is yes, vote Jennifer Denny, Brad Hart, Bob Schneider, Lupe Casper, and Bernard McCree. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tammy Keener, comments last meeting.
Boy, I hope this gets fixed tomorrow. Good evening, everybody. You know, I've been coming to these board meetings a lot of years, and I have never, ever witnessed something that I did 2 weeks ago. That should not have happened. Politics do not belong in this damn board meeting. Period. Cost somebody their life. He did not deserve to have to die. Let's grow up and stop the rhetoric. I sent you an email, and I think I copied you, Mr. Maravich, on the video recording. That should not happen in this boardroom. 2 years ago when I ran, I got thrown out for doing that. Are you playing devil's advocate here? Taking sides? That's not fair. He should not be in this boardroom right now and not able to record. That should be in your 903 policy. Something is very wrong here at Wilson when parents are increasingly hesitant to leave their impressionable children in the care of a board that has a problem rebuking several board members that openly promote unethical behavior and support organizations that promote change through violence, who place more emphasis on ideology than morals. The last board meeting was well scripted in advance of the meeting, especially the Hispanic presentation. I wonder if not for other community member that spoke at the previous board meeting in Spanish, if there would have been any presentation at all. And how did Casper have a written speech ready thanking the presenter for such a wonderful presentation? 2/3 of the presenters speaking accolades supporting the Democrat candidates include the union president represented where teachers, which is only a very thin fraction of the professional employees. Many teachers support the Republican candidates. I've been through this district. I've talked to them. I want only the best for all children, and I stress the best for all children equally.
1 minute.
Another tantalizing scripted part of the meeting was with the business owner who pretended not to understand the tax increases noted in the paper, but discussed Title IX, which has nothing to do with this at this time with our budget, but was a ploy to bring transgender and loss of federal funds into the conversation to scare the public. An overwhelmingly majority of Americans, as high as 85%, agree that transgender athletes should only be allowed to compete based on the sex at birth. So, where did this come from? Most likely from the board president who stated, "I'm glad you brought this up. I'm well prepared to discuss it." Seems a bit like a script. There is no candidate on the Democratic ticket that has any accounting or finance background, period. Although Jenny Denny refers to CPAs and accountants as crooks and liars, we need balance on the board. Think about that when you vote tomorrow.
Thank you for your comments. Matt Durr, Board Appreciation.
Good evening. My name is Matt Durr, and I am a community member here at Wilson School District, a place I love to live. Wilson is a place where my kids enjoy learning every day. I have a student at Wilson West, and I have a fifth grader at Whitfield. And Wilson happens to be the place that I call my second home and my family, as I have been an educator at Whitfield for nearly 20 years. I wanted to come out tonight to share my thanks to you, our current board. I've had the privilege over the years to work alongside of this board, serve on committees, teach your children, and work with you in outside community organizations. My family and I are so lucky to be here and be a part of this district with all of you. It's thanks to this board that our programs are thriving and changing for the better. Students are receiving more attention for their emotional, academic, and social needs. Curriculums are evolving and changing for the better. Wilson is a place with amazing opportunities and provides so much for our students. I love that we have internships, a close relationship with the BCTC, clubs that are focused on our student interests, and programs that help our students grow. I see the support that you give our students in all of their extracurricular programs. Thank you for supporting our students. Thank you for hiring additional staff in our buildings and in our schools. At the start of the school year, Whitfield and other elementary schools were in need of additional teachers and staff due to our high enrollment numbers. Thank you for increasing the number of classes for our youngest learners so that they did not have high class sizes. A large class size drastically shifts the learning opportunities of our students and places more demands on our staff. I appreciate that you are willing to invest in a new performing arts and center. I appreciate that you are looking into starting a new elementary building. With 2 students that are coming up through the music and arts program, we are all very excited now to see this program come true. Our elementary school at Whitfield is filled to the brim. We literally have run out of learning spaces, so I know that this is a destination district. I know that I am not the only building that is growing and reaching capacity. because we are a part of a national recognized district, an award-winning district. So thank you for making that happen. Thank you for listening to others and being open and honest with us. This board has worked hard to listen to our students, staff, community, and all stakeholders. In all my years, I feel that this board listens to the needs of all and works hard to make sure that their decisions have the best interest of Wilson School District. So in meetings that are filled with negativity, people that point fingers and accuse you of not doing your job, I am here to tell you that you most definitely are doing your job. So again, let me say thank you. I see your hard work. I know your dedication and your love for this district and the students and staff and community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jennifer Denny, School Board Election.
You moved the lectern. You people must be feeling a little neglected over there. Tonight, I had prepared something else, but I read something shortly before coming here that I thought was so on point that I wanted to read it. And it's not my words. It's written by a gentleman I've never met. His name is Dr. Shudax. He was the former superintendent of another local Pennsylvania school district and now runs a consulting firm. All elections are important, but this November's election carries some especially important decisions. When looking at school board candidates, voters' decisions could advance the work of the school district or could throw it into discord. This election presents some clear differences in the views, priorities, and approaches of the candidates. The outcome could have a positive or negative impact on the district for many years to come. I should note this wasn't written about Wilson either, though it seems to apply. Voters should consider the role and responsibilities of school board members as they make their choices. First, school boards work at the strategic level of decision-making for a school district. Administrators work at the operational level. The superintendent, also known as the 10th member of the board, works at both levels. When school board members cross into the operational level of decision-making, they demonstrate not only a lack of trust and support for their administration, they also create distractions and conflict that pull resources away from the students. A school board in conflict with its administration impacts morale and performance throughout the district. Second, the school board operates as a decision-making entity only when it convenes as a board. Individual board members do not have individual authority. When a school board member forgets this, he or she finds the role frustrating. It is critical that the board work as a team, discuss as a whole board, and support the decisions of the board. Board members are expected to speak their minds in board debate and vote their beliefs, but once the vote is taken, the board has made a decision, all must support it. That can be difficult for members with single agendas and uncompromising views. Failure to understand the role and responsibilities of a school board member leads to conflict and dysfunction on the board. Third, the school board must first, last, and always have the interest of the students in mind, the interest of all the students.
1 minute.
When making decisions about budget, policy, or personnel, the foremost questions is this: how will this benefit the students? Fourth, being a school board member is hard work. It takes time to understand the complexities of a school district and the areas the board members must be knowledgeable about. Often from the audience's seat, solutions seem simple and decisions seem puzzling. From the board seat, the decisions are sometimes driven by law and mandates and are rarely as easy or simple as they might appear to be. When the board makes a decision, the superintendent and his or her team of administrators are charged with implementing it. That is the operational component. When a board tries to dictate operational decisions, the chances of unintended consequences increase slightly. When going to the polls this year, I would strongly encourage voters to choose the candidates who will be able to work with others on the board, who understand the complexity of the position goes beyond single agenda thinking, who understand their role as strategic thinkers, who understand and support the work of the administration in the district, and who are willing to learn the role of the school board members for the benefit of all students. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jeff Giacomo, confidentiality on contract rates.
I hadn't planned to offer comment tonight, but when I see a governmental body stand in the way of fair trade and commerce, which in any other environment than this room is illegal, I just have to say something. To approve a contract that our attorney then says, well, if somebody submits a right to know, that contract rate would be shared under sunshine law. In other words, we'll put the taxpayer, the community, through hurdles to eventually get the information that is rightfully theirs as the community stakeholder, as the person's paying the bill to get. I think that is completely wrong. But then as I'm sitting here thinking about it deeper, I look at the company, I look at who the company serves, special education students, and they share in their agreement, although I think it's half sales letter, half here's what you'll pay us if you default, of course, no rate, and then some legalese at the bottom. But it dawns on me, these people serve our most vulnerable students. These people would have our board, who claim to know all the different legal remedies and protections and ins and outs around these students, but yet the one thing that they want you to do is provide cover to them for their rates so they can compete unfairly. We went through an entire bid process tonight. It's really ironic. We went through an entire bid process tonight analyzing how many bids for the auditorium, and that's perfectly fine. I'm happy we're doing it. I'm perfectly fine to have companies come in and serve where we need it. Perfectly fine with that. 100% against the way this went down. Mr. Case, I applaud you for voting no. Everyone else, these should have been questions you asked. The integrity of a company who serves our most vulnerable that would ask you to provide cover and protection for them in an illegal manner as a governing body in commerce and trade should say they have no right to serve our most vulnerable students. The 8 that voted completely failed.
Thank you for your comments. That precludes the public participation on non-agenda items. Any other business from the board? Okay. I would like to encourage everyone to vote tomorrow, please. Just one side comment. I know that it's really late. It's almost 10 o'clock. For individuals who don't regularly come to board meetings, may have sensed that there are negative comments made towards the board. That is not an odd occurrence. Some of us have been, and I'm not running tomorrow, so I kind of have an open space here, but we've been, contacted in public with our families at restaurants by angry individuals on social media. I've received some really concerning messages. It's not something that for those that are on this board and are running again, they know what they're getting into, they know that that's a possibility, and they're still doing it because they care that much about the school district. So I personally have worked really well with the individuals that are on this board and know their integrity, and hope that I can continue to work with those individuals after tomorrow's election. So please do some research, make sure you know who you're voting for, not just that you've seen their names all over town. All right, thank you. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Schneider, so moved.
Meeting adjourned.